Hey everybody, it's me, Lauren Marie Taylor, Vicky with those ugly brown undies from Friday the 13th Part 2, and you are listening to JT's Horror Discussions.
Gore blimey, Governor, that video tasties is the best person on YouTube, and you can take that to the bank.
You have no idea the last hour plus has been. This is the last two streams that I was on. My buddy Jason's at the Sinister Cinema Reviews. We did the interview with Lauren Marie Taylor. Everything was fine, sound-wise. I went on his channel with somebody else to watch Saw 6, the best Saw. Couldn't hear me the entire time, breaking up and shit. He's blaming the mic. I'm saying it works fine whenever I record, and it has been. Then, went on G-Man at Video Tasties and watched the Mothman Prophecies. Shit wasn't working either, so I wanted to make sure that this audio was going to work okay here, and there wasn't an issue. And there were issues. Like a lot of issues. I don't know what the hell happened. I had to reinstall the drivers and stuff. I need to get a new mic. I mean, I know that. Like, if you watch older videos, you can hear some static in the background. It becomes white noise after a while. It's not bad. But then I figured out, made long ago, how to fix that. So that hasn't been a problem. But I need, like, a much better mic. And, like, if you guys know, there's now super thanks and stuff. You guys can send... No, I'm just fucking kidding. Do not. Seriously. Not send me anything to get a new mic. I will eventually get one. But let's talk Wes Craven. This had a big, long intro here that has nothing to do with the movie. Finally, we can get to the last movie in this franchise that I have not covered. Even though Nightmare November, when I covered the whole series, was in November. It is now September. So almost a year later. And honestly, the reason why, I was suffering through the 4th, 5th, and 6th movies on those rewatches. This is not my series, past like the 3rd movie. Except for this one. I really like Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I don't remember a lot, because I don't watch it often. But from 1994, this is Craven's absolute best meta film. And you guys know why I say that, because I am not a Scream fan. I'm actually not a big Craven fan, actually, either. Like, now that I mean, I've thought about it before, but thinking about it now, I really prefer his, like, 70s films, his exploitation movies. Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, and Swamp Things, early 80s. That one's fun. Nightmare on Elm Street, obviously. This movie. People Under the Stairs is fun. That's about it. Like, I'm not a big Craven fan. I never have been. So maybe that's another reason I was not rushing to get back to Freddy in any way, because of how much I was suffering watching the 4th, 5th movies especially. I had more fun with the 6th one for some reason, but it's just not my series. And it's because after the 3rd one, and even in the 3rd one, I just had a thought too, I swear to you, if I play this back, whatever length this is, and then the audio's cut out or messed up, I'm going to break something. But past 3, and even in 3, is when Freddy starts getting very silly, and with his one-liners and everything. I don't fault Robert Englund. I mean, he's fantastic, as always, playing Freddy. I blame the writers and everything putting those lines in there. Like in 4, when he's a waiter, and it just gets so stupid and out there. It just completely just doesn't do it for me. Maybe I liked him more growing up because I was a kid and younger, so it works a little more because they're juvenile jokes most of the time. We have here Heather Langenkamp back. We have Robert Englund, of course. We have Wes Craven in here. We have Bob Shea, the head of New Line Cinemas, who has a scene or two in this, and his sister Lynn Shea, who is in the original as the teacher. She has a scene in here also, so there's a lot of great stuff in this movie, and hopefully, since it's already 11:45 at night, and I'm just about to start this 2-hour movie, because of all these problems, hopefully it's only a half hour, Dylan's New Nightmare, so if anything, yeah, I'll probably try to watch that and get a video out. Maybe I'll do like a spoiler-free one, because I know a lot of people haven't seen it yet. But let's talk Wes Craven's 1994 return to amazingness in this series, because this movie saved the series. And then the remake destroyed it again. I gotta say, it is great, though, seeing Wes Craven here. Like, in this opening scene, which is a great opening scene, where it makes you think the first time you watch this that you're seeing Freddy, or doing his thing with the glove, then they're working on a film. And the whole premise here of Freddy not being scary anymore, so he lost all his power, because people stopped believing in him and stopped, finding him scary. And how he starts writing the script, Wes Craven, in the movie, and it starts coming true as it goes on. There's a lot of great meta stuff in here. Like, that's why I always will defend that when people say, maybe you don't like meta stuff. No, it's fantastic in this movie. Also, most likely, this is going to be a very late night premiere for this. It's already almost midnight. It's a 2-hour movie. Then I got to edit it. It's another hour plus, maybe. Then upload it. So, expect a premiere. Hey, British friends of mine, you guys will be awake at like 3, 4 in the morning. But you guys won't even know that, because you won't even see this, because I'll edit this out. Back to the movie. I love this. All the effects here in the beginning, with the hand moving on its own, and it cuts the guy's throat, and then there's a great little detail. The way that Freddy always taps things, like, or railings of, in the boiler room and stuff, with his fingers. The hand, the animatronic hand, does the same thing. So, implying that Freddy's controlling, that's a great, clever little thing right there. Like, right off the bat, great stuff, clever as can be. Now, of course, we also have the little kid, Dylan. Forget the actor's name. Wasn't he the same kid who said, might be a tumor, it's not a tumor? Like, isn't he from Kindergarten Cop? Because he was funny as shit back in these days when he was a kid. Yeah, all the effects work is great in that opening dream sequence, because then we find out that it's just a nightmare. And they wake up, Nancy, this is going to get so confusing. With the real names and the actors' names that are in the movie as themselves and all that. Oh, this is going to be nuts. But when Heather, I told you, when Heather and her husband wake up, of course there's an earthquake, because it's freaking California. I can already tell this is going to be all over the place, this video. Maybe it's just because I was frustrated earlier trying to get the sound working good and everything. I don't know. But if you noticed, and I've said it a few times, that especially now that we're in Slasher September, I did a lot of my favorite slashers, and also some other movies, very early on in the channel. Like in my old, you see this, Jason style, in a different room, and I took notes, like during watching a movie, and then I'd record the video. Then after maybe 5-6 months, right around Nightmare in November, actually, I think the Nightmare on Elm Street movie, the first two are the last ones, I think, done in the older style, before I switched it up to just now watching the movie while I'm recording. Basically, like a solo watch-along discussion is what I could pretty much like describe my stuff as now. But yeah, that's wild to think that this series, when I started covering this series, is when I switched up my style. And since I did a lot of those early, videos and did a lot of my favorite films, I have and will be, like, not often, but every now and then, like, if I'm not feeling good one night or something, but I still want to discuss these movies with you guys. And that's the great part about being able to take them off YouTube, download them, edit them, so they're kind of different. Because it's pretty much going to be the same exact thoughts and everything, and stuff that I say and point out. If I redid those videos, and I've done like 600 films already, I'm not going back and redoing all those videos. Are you serious? I'd rather just edit them and then put them up and premiere them. That way, everybody who watches now, when we hang out in the premieres and discuss these movies, we can actually discuss those films. Because when I was putting them out, nobody was there. You know what I mean? So that's the whole reason for that. But second, or whatever numbered tangent this is, it relates. Because I just did that for Jeepers Creepers 3. And it's hard for me to watch some of those earlier ones, and that's why most of the time that I do retro JT, as I call them, re-uploads, I edit them, and I do. It goes against my religion almost, but I edit out some of my F-bombs because I cursed way too much in the beginning of this channel. I noticed that with a lot of YouTubers too. As time goes on, it's not like anything changed. I still curse like crazy. It's just how I was brought up. I was brought in a Italian household that all yelled, screamed, and cursed at each other and didn't know they were yelling, screaming, or cursing at each other. That was just how they talked, and they didn't realize it. And just being around people in my family and stuff that, how do I say this without incriminating, weren't doing the best moral practices. It's just ingrained in me. So when I premiered that Jeepers Creepers 3 one, and yes, that was a rant, so I was real pissed when after spending time watching that movie, then having to talk about all the stupidity in that. But even I was thinking to myself, man, I wish I wasn't cursing that much there. So I think about you sensitive types too, okay? All the sensitive ones, it's not many of you, thank God, but some of you, I think you guys do now. Another thing real quick, you would never get the new nightmare. This movie just does not want to be talked about for some reason by me. So big thanks to Carrie and to Jason at Ginja Ninja for the little push to get me to 650. We've passed 650 subs. That's awesome, guys. And seriously, the last month, we've hit over 12,000 views. We've hit over 450 watch hours, which is amazing, and it means so much to me. That's all you guys said. It's all you guys who watch and are there hanging out and discussing these movies when I just yap on and on and on and get 13 minutes into a video or so, and I've said 2 things about the movie I'm talking about, but it really, sincerely, it means everything to me. That's the whole reason I started this channel, to meet other people, like-minded people that I can talk horror with and discuss my passion for horror I've had my whole life. And now I finally feel like I've had that. I always have. There were always, and you know who you guys are, who were there since pretty much near the beginning. But now it's like a family, and it's such a blessing. So thank you guys so much. And Jason, Carrie, thank you for that little push. And back to the goddamn movie. All right, so testing again. I'm doing this in parts. Every 10 minutes, I'm stopping the video because I'm gonna be editing all this together anyway, just to make sure the sound is good throughout all of it, and I don't record a 2-hour video. Now, this is more great stuff here. That since Wes has been dreaming, it's assumed that that's when the weird events in her life has started happening. So that whole dream she had about her husband getting killed on set with the mechanical glove and everything, she finds out here from Bob Shea that they already have Chase, her husband, working on a prototype glove and stuff. And they didn't want to tell her. They wanted to be a surprise, wait till they had this conversation between her and Bob. So that's clever too. That all of the events that has been happening in her life that have been really making her uneasy, besides the whole thing with her son and what he's going through and continues to go through even more so. The fact that it all starts because Wes Craven, the creator, started dreaming and having nightmares again, and they're turning into reality. I'm sorry, but this is better in every way on the meta front than any Scream film. Sorry, guys. Sorry for you Scream fans. I always respect your opinion. I'm happy you guys love it. But for me, this is better than the whole series of Scream combined. Now, I'm mixed on when this happens in movies. It depends on the movie, for me, honestly. I can be hypocritical with that shit. I could be watching a movie I adore, and there can be some dumb shit, and I'll let it go. But then I'll be watching a movie that sucks, or that I'm not enjoying at all, and I just can't let certain things go. And now a special report.
Yes, John, we are over here in the UK, and there are 2 YouTube creators, as well as a supposedly alive Pee Wee Herman, who are being questioned under suspicion of crimes against children.
To recap, because we're going to fucking need it, they wake up from the great dream sequence, middle of a goddamn earthquake, And they have the kid Dylan. So then Heather, got it that time, she catches Dylan watching A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I love when she goes and, I don't want you watching this, and touches him, and he just screams and freaks out like he was in a trance. Love that. And it's very clever here also that he's having bad nightmares because he's seen her film with Freddy. So in a way, Freddy's causing his nightmares to then come back now and freak him out and try to kill him in his nightmares. That's more clever than anything in the Scream fucking series, in my opinion. But then we get the phone call. When she picks it up, it says 1, 2, and she hangs back up. That was the birth of Scream, too, right there. As the performances go, I never thought Langenkamp was a phenomenal actress or anything like that. She's good. She's very good. She's not great or anything, but she does a good performance here, just as you would expect. She feels just like herself, and Nancy at the same time. And then we have the babysitter, Julie, who I really like her character too. I like Heather's husband in this. And Dylan's performance might be the best out of all of them. Besides Anglin, is Freddy, of course. This kid, the way that he puts himself into that trance look, where he's just staring into the abyss, and all of that is fantastic in this movie. That's one thing I always praise this movie for, is this kid killed it. And you guys know, it's hard to get a great child performance out of especially a young kid like this. It's rare, but it happens here, and he just absolutely kills this role. Heather thought that Dylan had a fever that morning when he was in his whole fugue state watching Nightmare on Elm Street on the TV, and then freaked the hell out, and she gets into the limo to go where she's going. Who's gonna leave their kid like that? So then Julie, the babysitter, and friend of Heather's, obviously, that I really like. Of course, there's going to be dumb shit in this movie, just like any other movie, whether it's good or bad. Heather was worried about going because Dylan had a fever, she said. Now, I don't know, it sounds like she may be lying and saying it was a fever, and she's referring to him in that trance-like state watching Nightmare on Elm Street. But your kid, you find your kid like that, this kid looks messed up. When those shots of him with his eyes just staring and stuff, when he's watching this, and then that scream, and she doesn't call out of work, or wherever she's going right now, for any reason, you're leaving your kid with somebody else, I don't care who it is or how you trust them. I would never leave my daughter. If she had a reaction like that, I'm canceling everything for the rest of my life until I know she's fine. So that's stupid. But then we get a great scene in the limo. I love the limo driver's dialogue when he says wait, you're that girl. You were I saw your movies, and he goes, he just makes this short little sound effect to imitate Freddy's glove. That's all of that dialogue is great, funny, good stuff. And she's heading to a talk show. It's the 10th anniversary since the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and she's doing this publicity thing in honor of the 10th year anniversary. That's a whole great scene too, with the whole talk show, all the questions he's asking her, and saying having a kid now, does that change your perspective on horror? And she says, not really. And then he asks, would you let your son ever watch your movies? She goes, my son? He's like, no. Well, except for this morning when he ended up watching it, you should have stayed home and watched after him instead of came here. All of this just works for me 100%. All this meta stuff. So I don't want to keep harping on Scream, but I mean, it's Wes Craven we're talking about here, and it's another meta film, and it came right before Scream, so of course it's going to be brought up. But all the stuff here, when she's sitting there, and then she gets the surprise from the talk show host, and after he asks, is Freddy really dead? And then he asks a funny question, would you trust, your co-star, Robert Englund, with your son? And she laughs at Robert? Of course I would. And then they bring him out as a surprise for everybody. And then Englund comes out as Freddy, and I love how he slashes through the curtain with his claw, and he comes in, and then the music, all the people in the crowd are holding up signs saying Freddy and welcome back Freddy, and all of that works brilliantly here. It's shot so well. The lighting, when Freddy is facing the crowd and the spotlight is down on him, and he says, guys, Freddy's back. All of that is fantastic here. And it's even better and amplified how great it is because she just answered that question of, would she be afraid to have Dylan, her son, alone with Robert Englund? She, of course, says no, but then once she sees him come out as Freddy, and all because she's getting these weird phone calls, and obviously this morning with the thing she never should have left her son alone after, he's kind of giving her a different vibe here, even though she knows it's Robert Englund. She's getting more sinister vibes from it. And that's played off perfectly, too. And the way she puts that on, her performance, is great in this scene. Great callback to Psycho 2 in this, when Freddy is like talking to the crowd, and he says, just when you guys thought it was safe to get back in the bed. For Psycho 2, they were saying just when you thought it was safe to get back in the shower. That's a great reference to one of the greatest sequels ever made. We also get a reference to my favorite line in the whole series, from my favorite film in the whole series, too, Freddy's Revenge, when he says in that film with the fire in the background, "You are all my children now." And he says it again here. Just the references just work here for me. Unlike that other movie and sequels to me. And then Heather and Englund, in, without the makeup and everything, are talking and walking for a few minutes, and they're trying to get them, like the producers, whatever, are trying to get them to work together again. And she says, yeah, like a love story. And I love Englund's line when he says, just because it's a love story doesn't mean you can have a decapitation or something. Now, she goes to see Bob Shea, the head of New Line, who's Lin Shaye's brother, and who's great. When I had Jack Shoulder on, director of who did Nightmare 2, he was best friends, and still is, I think, to this day, with Bob Shea here. And I never realized, man, how similar Bob and Lynn look. Brother and sister, they really do look similar. So Bob starts asking Heather how would she like to be in the definitive Nightmare film. That they want to make another one. The fans just won't quit. And this is more meta stuff that works great. It's just like the fan base before this movie, like the years leading up to this, whenever Freddy's Dead, I forget what year it came out, 91? Again, not my series. Pretty sure. So this is 3 years. People are wondering, like, is Freddy dead for good? Which, I mean, they kill him in every movie, so the whole thing of her saying, I thought you killed Freddy off, makes no sense, because they kill Freddy at the end of every single film. And I've said in the past, on that whole series when I did it, they're terrible at killing Freddy and getting rid of him at the end of all the films. Every film. I don't like it. Personally, it's a thing with me, I guess. The first movie, the whole I take away all the energy I ever gave you when he just disappears. Yeah, I guess, whatever. I mean, even in 2, which I love the most, it's the power of love that conquers him, and they bury him in sacred ground in another one. They don't know how to kill this guy off at the end of any of these movies. So that's comical to me just for my thoughts on it. Now, of course, this is just a small, silly nitpick, like usual. But Bob Shea says to Nancy here, Heather, I was doing good for a while, you gotta give me credit. Heather, he says to her that Wes has been calling him, and she thought that he didn't even do horror movies, for like 10 years. And he ends up calling Bob Shea and pitching this idea that he's been having from his nightmares for a new script. And she gets offered it by Bob, and he says to her, I figured who better than to resurrect Freddy than the one who created him. She didn't create Freddy. Tina dies first. Tina, dreamt of him first. So, she didn't create him, is what I'm trying to say. So that doesn't make any sense. I get it. It was meant in a way of she created him as a cultural icon in the series and everything like that. She was in the first film. That's what kicked it all off. I get it. It's just, they could have written that a little better. She didn't create Freddy Krueger. See, the comedy just, it works completely for me here. Just small little lines, too. When he says, Bob, to Heather, that, she thought he stopped doing horror movies, and Wes hasn't called Bob in 10 years because he wasn't having any really scary nightmares, and that's where he gets the ideas for this. And she said, so he's having nightmares again. And he said he's very excited about it. And she says, the nightmares? And he's like, no, the script. That's so funny. This thing works in most movies, it works very well here because it's, it's Freddy, it's supernatural and stuff, and Wes is writing the script in his mind as it goes on. When she asked Bob Shea if he's been having anything weird happening in the few months that Wes started writing the script, and then as soon as she asks any weird phone calls, the phone rings. Sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time it does, because in real life we've all had that. Those little idiosyncrasies that you're thinking of a friend and they call you, or like right after that, or you're thinking of a song and it turns right on the radio right there. So that's why it works in most things, unless it's done stupid as hell. Then, because then it's not good. So I like when she asks him that and says, have you had any weird phone calls, the phone rings, any nightmares? And you can tell that by the way he behaves when he doesn't pick the phone up, and she says, when you answer the phone, Bob, and he makes that excuse of that we have people here, we paid to do that, and he yells, somebody pick up the phone. So it's heavily implied that weird stuff has been happening to Bob Shea also. I seriously couldn't take it. I don't care how people feel about lighting. I can't have them blasting my eyes. So I compromised a bit, bent him back a little bit, facing the other way. If you can't see my face in these videos with this lighting, you better get your eyes checked immediately. Or get new eyes or something. Kill somebody, take the eyes, transplant it, or whatever you gotta do. This is what I mean with the actor who plays Dylan, with his performance. The way he freaks out when Heather gets back home and Julie's trying to calm him down, he's like writhing around in bed. Writhing, that ain't a word, but whatever. He's like causing a ruckus.
Could you describe the ruckus, sir?
In bed, he's having a fit. And the way that he says, like, never sleep again, this is just absolutely brilliant. Fantastic acting. To me. I mean, I know everyone's different on that shit. I know people think the guy, the kid in the Shining miniseries who plays Danny Torrance, who has the second biggest face that I want to punch of a kid in horror movies. I know people who think he does a great job. He's awful. So maybe people think Dylan's performance here is not good, but I think that's brilliant acting for a kid that age. The way with his voice, his facial expressions, and you see that throughout the entire film here. You gotta love Rex, the protector of Dylan, the little T-Rex stuffed animal that he hugs when he goes to bed and protects him against, under the covers, which we see later on, leads into Freddy's lair for Dylan, and that's where he comes from to try to get Dylan, so he puts Rex at the edge of the bed. All of that's adorable, because we've all been through that. Any one of us who were afraid of the dark, or a monster in the closet, anything like that, we always had some type of childlike thoughts and ideas to try to protect us from that. And it's also extra cool that it's a T-Rex, because my cousins and I, forget it, but we see the claw marks on Rex, the stuffed animal, showing that Freddy's already been there and he's been trying to get Dylan. Instead, he got a little bit of Rex. I also really like the husband here of Heather. Chase? I said it before. I'm pretty sure it's Chase, yeah. And he's out working on, the glove and the effects for this new movie they want to make. And he's a good husband. Like, you see a lot more dickhead husbands or dickhead wives in movies to the main character than you do really good ones. And I really like Chase's whole personality here. And he's a loving husband and father. But the one thing you never want to hear is she calls up and said that Dylan's having some type of episodes and stuff. And he says, like, all right, I'll be there in 3 hours. 3 hours? Thank you, Brian. And then he says to the crew people, he's like, my kid is sick. I got to fly. Then gets in a car and drives. Are you kidding me? She's so concerned, Heather, about Dylan and him having nightmares and all this with Freddy, all this scary shit for a kid and her. And yet she's reading Hansel and Gretel to him for a bedtime story. Come on, man. You know how all those fairy tales, they're dark as hell. The guy who plays Dylan, the kid here, I can't praise his performance enough. Like, especially on this rewatch, like, it's really, really impressing me. Like, more than it ever has. And I've always loved him in this. But when he starts reciting the end of the story to her, really quickly and stuff, and with a sinister tone. And then she says, like, all right, it's time for bed. And he grabs her arm and says, like, no, like, now. Whatever he asked her. All of that is great. Yeah, then we get that adorable scene with Heather and Dylan when he explains his whole strategy here of how he keeps Freddy away from getting him. And they go under the covers together. And I love how he says, like, come on, I'll show you. And he's like, with that childhood excitement, like, this is his idea. And he gets to show it off to his mother. It's so good. And he puts Rex at the end of the bed. He says, and I put my feet all the way up here. That way the man with the claws can't get me. I mean, if he's coming from the edge of those sheets, I mean, just put him in another bed, man. And then we get one of my favorite lines in this film from anybody but Dylan, when Heather says to him, silly, like, there's nothing down there. Don't worry. Come on, look. And they crawl together down to the edge of the bed, and they just see the floor. Then Dylan says, it's different when you're gone. That is a fantastic and chilling line. I've always loved that. Miko Hughes, or Hughes. Us Long Islanders, man, we don't pronounce the H. So, Miko Hughes is who plays Dylan, and is in the fan film, which I'm not watching tonight. Are you serious after all this that I gotta do? But definitely tomorrow. I can't believe I forgot that he's also plays Gage in Pet Sematary. I knew it. It just didn't come to mind with all this shit going on. But he is a decent amount younger in that film. Like, he's a little toddler still. He's a little more grown up here. But totally forgot he is in Pet Sematary. He was also on Full House as one of the Olsen twins, Michelle's friends. And always funny. So she puts Dylan to bed, and then Chase, the father, is on the way home. That 3-hour drive that he was driving, he said he was flying. I'm kidding. I know what he meant. He's singing Losing My Religion by R.E.M. Great song. And then Freddy's glove comes up as he starts falling asleep and just scratches the shit out of him, and he ends up crashing. And she wakes up right when he dies, essentially, and she thinks it's a nightmare at first. And then she gets the knock at the door, the police. Oh, I couldn't imagine, man, especially with all the weird stuff going on with her and her son. And now her husband's dead. Oh, you feel for Heather in this. You really do. This is stupid, though. This is a stupid line. I don't know why they wrote it this way. They ask, is Chase Porter your husband? And she says, yes. And then they say, we're sorry to tell you that there's been an accident. And she asks, what, is he hurt? Come on, what type of question is that? I get shock and all that, but still. And they say I'm afraid it's worse than that. Like, he's dead, and they tell him that he's dead. But she asks, is he hurt? When do cops come to a house when someone comes out of an automobile accident unscathed, like, and not have to go to the hospital or anything? I love when she says, I want to see his body, and the male cop's like, trust me, ma'am, no, you don't. But of course she wants to see the claw marks, if it was Freddy, if she's not just losing her mind, or if this is really happening. And then she goes to the morgue, and he pulls it down a little bit, and you see 3 of the claw marks up his body. And I love this guy's reaction when she says, I need to see it again. He gives her such a look like no one has ever said that to him in his entire career. All right, here's a little quick hot take that I kind of already rigged in my favor by the way I worded. The way that they portray Heather's trauma in this movie and her fear of Freddy, even though she played a role in a movie in the past with Freddy, the way they explore what she's going through and her trauma and everything and how much this is affecting her, better job than Jamie Lee Curtis in both H2O and especially in the trilogy, the recent one. Better here, even though, like I said, totally different situations, but whatever. Actually, no whatever, because what happened to Laurie, she should be more traumatized and freaked out and everything. She's playing it better, and everything that links to her past that Freddy's coming back from, he's a fake character. So I stand right. Then we have the great John Saxon back, not reprising his role, playing himself, but which always great to see him. but I feel it's a little on the nose and trying too hard, just for a reason to bring John Saxon back into this. Like, especially like the funeral scene for her husband, which has a great nightmare sequence when the coffin, and she goes down to the coffin because Dylan gets dragged down there, and then she goes to try to save him, and then Chase, the husband, is down there and says, "Stay with me," and all that, and it turns out Saxon's right there. I don't know, that doesn't work for me. It's a little too forced. Then we have Dylan sleepwalking and creepily reciting the 1-2 Freddy's coming for you iconic lines. She's trying not to wake him up because he's sleepwalking, and you're not supposed to wake people up when they're sleepwalking. Is what they say. I mean, I don't know. I've never woken somebody up when they were sleepwalking. I've never really known a sleepwalker, so I don't have personal experience. But then he snaps out of it. And again, he has this crazy fit. Then she asks, "Where did you hear that song?" And he says, "In my bed. Like, I hear children singing it. And for the scary man." And she says, "What does a man want?" And he says, "To get, into our world." Then his nose starts bleeding. The fact she don't take him to the nearest emergency room is unbelievable to me. These are 2 incidents, more than that, but 2 major ones. The fit in bed, no, 3. The fit in bed, the one at the very beginning, watching the movie, and now his nose is bleeding? Come on, I know she does eventually, but this movie actually could have been a lot shorter. This does not have to be an hour and 50 minutes. This could have been easy 90 minutes. You wouldn't miss a beat here. But that's insane. So now we get a great scene. One of my favorites in the movie. It might be my favorite. When Saxon, again, is here, which this makes more sense. This scene's great. And then they just had that conversation the night before, Heather and Dylan, that his father's in heaven, and he says, "Do you have to die to see God?" And she says, "I don't think so." Then they're at the park, and while they're talking, and her fake father from a movie is the one who tells her, "Maybe you should get him checked out by a doctor." Unbelievable. But then we get Dylan crawling up the playground and standing at the highest spot and just ready to jump. And the choir music that kicks in sounds very The Omen, like very similar to the Omen score. And can you imagine your kid looking at him up there, and he's about to jump, and just in the nick of time, he jumps, she grabs him, and then, oh, what heartbreaking lines, man. You feel for this kid in this movie so much when he says, "God wouldn't take me," because he wants to see his father. Oh, she calls Anglin and asks him if he's been having any dreams, and he's painting a picture of Freddy, which looks awesome, by the way. The scene when Dylan is apparently sleepwalking, because it's just another nightmare we find out that Heather is having, and he's singing the song again, 1-2 Freddy's coming for you, and all that, and he has knives like taped to all his fingers like Freddy, and then attacks her and she wakes up. That's a great scene too. This watch is really like blowing my mind with how much I forget how great he does in this. He's just walking around in like in a trance, and he's saying, "Never sleep again. Never sleep again." It's creepy, man. Like, it's really effective. And he wrote out on the floor that says "answer the phone" with all different sheets of paper for each letter. Really creepy scene. Then we get a great homage again to the original when she picks the phone up and his tongue comes through the speaker. Great. And then Dylan starts puking up, having another fit, and then finally this woman brings her son to a doctor. But then here's some stuff that makes no sense, because she's talking to this nurse, or the doctor. She's a doctor, not a nurse. Talking to her, and she's asking her all the logical questions, like, has he been exposed to or has seen any of your old films, the horror stuff? And she's going along with this and, like, answering her questions. She just had a tongue come out of her phone in real life. That wasn't a nightmare. That was in real life. And then he puked, she picked him up, and now they're at the hospital. So why is she, like, putting up with any of this? Why is she just saying, like, "No, I know, like, something weird is going on that I can't explain. I've seen stuff, too." But then she'll get thrown into the loony bin. Then we get to see the great Lin Shaye real fast, which is great, because, like I said, she was in the original as a teacher. She has a small role here as a nurse. She's a nurse. The black one's a doctor. Yeah, I'm sorry. It makes no sense. I even just rewound and watched the last 10 minutes, just to be sure, before I commit to this. And who knows, watch up still wrong. No, I'm serious. It makes no sense. It She woke up out of a dream in her bed. At the beginning of that whole scene, she goes downstairs and she hears Dylan singing the song in the trance. And the things are written out on the floor, enter the phone. Then the phone rings. The big-ass tongue comes out of the phone and touches her face. Then he starts spitting out whatever it is, foam or some shit. And also some of that comes out of the phone. That really happened. Then she takes him to the hospital. And the doctor, all the questions that she's asking, unless the only thing I can think of, because it's been years since I've seen this, if this is all an act on her part just to get him out of the hospital fast. But even that doesn't make sense, because she's getting asked all these questions from the doctor. Has he seen any of your movies and blah, 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 blah. Did he say anything when he was still lucid? That maybe might give us an idea of what's happening. All of that, she's very genuine there. Then she sits down with Dylan and says, "Can you hear me?" And says, like, "Dylan, whatever it is that's after you, I need you to fight it." She doesn't think it by now that it's Freddy Krueger? I mean, I get that it's real life and stuff, so to her it's still unbelievable that a fake character from a film she was in a series, is coming into real life until she talks to Wes. But every sign here is pointing to, she saw her husband's scars. She saw the scratches on Rex, which is adorable. Again, how he says that Rex would make him feel happy. And when she points out our home is just past the freeway, which leads to a great scene later on. But all of that makes no sense that she's not immediately just saying no. Like, this, I know what's going on. This is Freddy. What else can this be? Unless she's losing her mind too. And then when Lynch comes in and gives Dylan the medication, she says, "I'm going to give him something to sleep." And she says, "Okay, yeah, it's okay, take him." I don't know. None of that makes sense in any way. Does she know or think it's Freddy? Does she not? But she had a big-ass tongue come out of a phone and touch her in reality. I don't know. Like, explain it to me if it makes sense. Then Dylan, when they walk away, he takes the pills out of his mouth. He cheeked them. Smart kid. Or smart, kind of possessed, but kind of not kid. Remember when I said that whole scene with Dylan, when he's ready to jump off the thing? Might be my favorite scene in the movie. That scene and this one right here. When Heather goes to meet up with Wes Craven. And just all the dialogue here, but just the whole idea he thought up of having these nightmares in the film, like in the context of the movie. He came up with it outside of the context. Had to clarify, because this shit gets confusing, especially at 2:30 in the morning. Now, still didn't edit, still didn't finish. Fun, though. This is a fun rewatch, I'll tell you that. But I love how he starts explaining to her his nightmares. And I love how he refers to what Freddy is in its most pure form as the entity. Which is a great film, by the way, from 83, I want to say, Barbara Hershey. If you haven't seen The Entity, man, check that movie out. I did a podcast video. If you have seen it, go check that podcast out. Awesome, awesome movie. But I love that that's what he calls it, and that it takes different forms. It's been around since, forever. And I love that he says it only, no matter what form it is, it always has the same goal: to murder the innocents. Just there, the beginning of the scene, that's fantastic stuff. Great dialogue. Then just more great dialogue by Craven here. And Heather too, but mostly Craven. And just seeing him, and like I said, even though I'm not huge on him, as a person, the guy was a fucking sweetheart. Every interview I've ever seen with him, any cameo he has in films of his that I like, the guy was an absolute gem of a person. So don't get me wrong. Like, don't take it the wrong way when I say I'm not big on Wes Craven films. Just mostly talking some of his films, a lot of his films. As a person, I have so much respect for him. But the dialogue in this scene is just fantastic. And then the way that Heather gets, like, almost mad at him that he knew this, that this script he's writing was starting to come true. But then her friendship and how she really feels with Wes and everything kicks back in, and she realizes, of course, if he really thought this was this was happening and that her son and her husband was in danger and stuff, of course he would have told her and stuff earlier. He didn't know. Then he says that the only way to stop him, in his mind that he thinks, is to make another movie. I don't know what to think of that. That is the equivalent to me of them never knowing how to get rid of Freddy in all the other movies. So just make another movie, and then I guess the entity that's this being, or this this entity that's been around since the dawn of time, and is evil, pure evil, and its main goal and function is to murder the innocents. But you give him a lead role in a New Line cinema film, and that's how you get rid of him? I don't know, man. When he starts saying his last few lines to Heather, and he says, like, when that time comes, like, to make that film, you're going to have to make a choice. And she says, what? He says, whether you're willing to play Nancy again. Then you see on his computer the lines typing as the conversation is happening. Great stuff. And then it even fades to black. After you see on the script, after the dialogue, it says fade to black for that scene. Like, I don't want to keep going on screen, man. Everything in this film is so much more creative and inspired, for me, than anything in Scream. Anything. Like, this film is scary at times. It's spooky. It's eerie. It's unsettling. Just the whole themes of family, and that she loses her husband, worrying for your kid's life and well-being, which is something I can relate to, and many of us can who have kids. All of that works to make this a horror film. And all the meta stuff works too. Like, very, very well. So clever with a lot of the stuff that Wes threw in here. Scream, to me, just, it's a fucking parody of horror movies, slasher films specifically, which I adore. So, like, maybe that's why, like, stop making fun of my favorite, like, horror movies. But, like, the meta doesn't work for me either most of the time. Like, this is the perfect film by Craven, using all this type of meta references and humor and stuff like that. No one will ever change my mind to that. Now that she knows right from Wes Craven's mouth that this is real and that the script is writing itself basically into reality, she's chugging coffee. I mean, immediately. Next scene, she's drinking coffee. Like, now she knows she can't go to bed. The way that Wes Craven spends, an hour and 8 minutes holding back the new look of Freddy. And how he looks, they hint at it, because Anglin says that he heard from Wes that he's darker, more evil and everything. So we hear it. But all the times we see Freddy, like, is Anglin playing him as in dream sequences, we don't really see him, but it's leading you to think it's going to be good old Freddy, like that we know. So when he comes out of the closet, insert South Park scene.
Now I've been asked to come up here, get you both out of the closet. Man, this is some crazy shit. But everyone wants you out the closet.
That doesn't matter, cause we're gonna stay.
Now I'm starting to get angry, so I pull out my gun. Oh! 1, I'm gonna shoot you both. 2, I'm gonna cap some bitch free.
And we see the makeup on him and how darker he does look and scarier he does look. What an effective jump scare. And you guys, I always say, you know how I feel about jump scares. 98% of the time, I can't stand them. That is a goddamn great jump scare. And what a great way to build tension on finally seeing Freddy for an hour, over an hour. And what a great payoff that is. That's a phenomenal scene. So then Heather goes to the hospital, and Julie, the friend, the babysitter, is there. And she says that she just had a bad feeling. She had a nightmare about Dylan. And that's what gets her there for a great scene, which is a great homage to the first film. There's so many great homages in this, to the whole series, but especially to the original. It makes sense. Wes Craven wrote and directed the first. He wrote and directed this. Then she has a conversation with the doctor. And she's treating her claw marks from Freddy, who just attacked her. And she says that, no, it happened, and she's not, now she knows that Freddy's real and everything. That's what I said earlier with Wes Craven. But it still makes no sense because of the tongue out of the phone, but I'm not getting back into it. So she ends up saying that your son has seen your films. And, like, he's been talking about a man who lives, like, under his bed, under his covers. Do you know who that man is and all that? And then she gives this great line, which is just so true. Every kid knows who Freddy is, and especially in 94 when this came out. I mean, it's such a huge hype, and everything was Freddy. He was everywhere in the 80s and leading, into the early 90s. So it really hits when she says that. When she says he's like Santa Claus or King Kong. Like, it's true. That's how big of a cultural icon that Freddy Krueger has become. And that's a huge reason why it's great as Jack Earl Haley is as an actor. That's not the only reason the remake is abysmal. Everything is wrong with that. But that just shows why Englund is the only one in my eyes and many eyes who could play Freddy Krueger. He is Freddy, and Freddy is Englund. Like, there's no replacing that. And that's just evident from how big the character of Freddy Krueger became. And the fact that the whole premise plays off of that is all of this is such a great movie. And as much as I love how great and caring a mom that Heather is to Dylan in this movie, she forgot the one damn thing that he feels safe with, Rex, the torn up T-Rex, that I got that long story I'm not going to tell the second time here. The one thing that her son needs to feel safe, and she forgot. I get she's going through stuff, but I mean, come on, man. We get an Exorcist type pea soup vomit all over Heather from Dylan after he, again, just nails it with creepy ass lines that Freddy's almost like back, that he's almost ready to come into our world. He doesn't say exactly that, but that's what he means. But the way he delivers all those lines is fantastic. And then the nurse, I mean, doesn't this lady understand that this woman, at the least, the least severe possibility, is just exhausted, worried about her son, and just lost her husband? But she goes and calls security, like, on this woman. I don't know, she overreacts a little bit there. And then we see Julie, the babysitter, and says, I got somebody, because she fell asleep with Dylan in the room, wakes up from that pea soup dream, and Dylan's gone. So she freaks out and says, Freddy's got him. And that's one thing you never want to say in a hospital in front of doctors or anything that's going to make you sound fucking insane, because they will lock your ass up for a hold for at least 24 hours immediately. Another reason this scene coming up where we get the recreation of Tina's death from the first nightmare done excellently here as well. It works even better because Julie is a likable character. Like, I really like her character. The way that she cares for Dylan, because she babysits and she's a friend of Heather's. Like, she knows this kid. And the fact that she stands up to the nurse or doctor, whatever the hell they are, they all wear white, so it don't fucking matter, with the needle, when the other one says, I'm going to give him something, he'll be fast asleep. And she knows, it's not a good idea. So she picks up a needle and she says, I know what's in yours. Do you know what's in this one? Or what it'll do to you? And then she runs away. That's hysterical. Another hot take right here. This kill, better than Tina's in the original. I'll start that argument now. Like, who wants to argue that? Better in every way for me. Tina's a disposable character in Nightmare. And you don't even know her for too long. She's cool. That's about it. Julie, she gets actually some pretty decent character development here. And great lines. She's likable. And then the effects look fantastic. I'm pretty positive they did this the same way as the original with the rotating room. And when she's looking at Dylan, and he's so sleep deprived, and she's trying to keep him awake, and then he says, Julie, behind you. And then you see Freddy with the green hat fedora, with the black coat over him for the first time, because he wasn't wearing it when he pops out for that jump scare earlier. What a great shot that is. Then she just gets torn up all over the walls, the ceiling. Just the fact that she's on the ceiling almost dead and she's reaching out her hand to Dylan and he's reaching up to hers, that makes it so much more disturbing and it makes it so much more effective. Then Dylan leaves screaming, Rex! Which his fucking mother still hasn't gotten for him. How the hell are they going to explain that to the police, that murder? Because there were 2 nurses, the black doctor, then there was Nancy, then Julie, who was dead, and then Dylan were there. And then security comes later. But those ones that I just mentioned were all in the doorway, looking right at Julie, floating in midair, with no one there, and then carried up the walls and on the ceiling and everything. So they're all going to give their testimonies to the police of what they saw. I mean, I don't know how they're explaining any of this. Okay, so then Dylan disappears because the doctor says to her, don't worry, he's sedated. He's very sedated. He's sleeping. He can't be walking. And she mentions he doesn't have to be awake because he sleepwalks. I'm not a doctor. I say this every now and then. Don't ever take medical advice from me, because from this channel at all, because you will perish. But a sedative, a strong sedative, it slows down your muscles. It slows down everything like that and stuff. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying, does anyone know? Can you sleepwalk while heavily sedated on a sedative or something like that? I'm interested. I mean, I could have just looked it up, but figured, why not ask you guys? Join in on this discussion too. Sidetrack number, whatever. It's always rewarding, more so, when you watch or rewatch a film like I just recently did with Texas Chainsaw 3D, and how abysmally stupid that movie is, and how bad the script is. Then a few days later going to a movie like this and just seeing a fantastic script, even if it's stuff that makes no sense, and I'm exaggerating a lot of the time. Humorous reasons for myself. It makes me laugh. If anything. If it does for you, good. That's, I'm guessing, one reason why you stick around. But the script is fantastic here. And it always puts it into perspective just how different everybody's minds work, and how everyone's creativity and imagination is completely different. And the way, or the capabilities that they have to either pull it off, their vision, whether it's sucked in the first place, like Texas Chainsaw 3D, and did not pull it off right, and it starting off excellent, like this script, and being pulled off pretty much excellently, like throughout the whole thing. Like, it's really wild. But then we have the scene where Dylan goes walking across the highway, or the freeway, as they have in California. And it looks okay. Like, you see Freddy in the sky, or like the CGI in the scene. At first, when the scene started, I was like, I think I remember the CGI not being too great here. Because you have the kid, you have Dylan, walking through mad traffic with cars everywhere. So obviously they didn't do this as, in real life. Because it's a Nightmare on Elm Street film, and it's all centered around that nightmare and dreamlike feel, it works to its benefit. Like, the scene CGI and the effects there, it works better being not excellent, if that makes sense. But really tense scene too. She's freaking out looking for Dylan, can't find him anywhere in the house. And she's screaming, walking around the house. Then John Saxon just appears and jump scares the shit out of her. He didn't hear her screaming her lungs out for Dylan? Are you playing some practical joke on me that makes no sense? That is so stupid. I love you, John Saxon, but fuck you, John Saxon, for that. Just the way now that the script that Wes Craven has been dreaming and having nightmares of, that's been coming true, writing itself, at the same time that we see that great shot of Dylan's bed and Freddy's head is under the sheets, and it starts rising from the bed, and then we see dialogue between John Saxon and Heather, but he's calling her Nancy, just like he thinks he's in the film from the first movie. And she asks, like, why are you calling me Nancy, John? And he responds, why are you calling me John? That's so clever, man. Like, all of this is such good writing. And then just all the interspliced shots that we get throughout that dialogue scene of Freddy slicing open the sheets on the bed and the makeup, his face coming through, and all of that is great camera work. The whole cinematography in this movie is fantastic. So Dylan was taken by Freddy 2.0. Love it. And now Heather knows what she has to do. She has to meet him in their dreams in order to finally get rid of Freddy. And then we get a great showdown here for the end. The whole setting for the end sequence here, the boiler room with the flames everywhere, it looks great. And there are a few, not much, but I think I counted 3 one-liners from Freddy in this movie, despite Wes wanting it to be a lot more of a scary and serious Freddy. And he does deliver them a little more sinisterly, whatever, it's 3 in the morning, than in the earlier sequels, where, in 4 especially going forward, where it sounds ridiculous and campy and stupid, and it doesn't work for me. But he has one line right before he kills Julie, where he says to Dylan, like, "Hey Dylan, you ever play Skin the Cat?" I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know what that line means. Skin the cat? She's not a cat. She has no resemblance to a cat. I don't think she fucking owns a cat. And he doesn't skin her at all. He just, stabs her and does the same thing he did to Tina. So whatever. It's so stupid I'm even mentioning this, but I don't know what that means, that line. If you ever wanted a snake being shoved into Freddy Krueger's eye in one of your nightmare films, you got it here. Yeah, the whole setting here for this finale is just great. Just all the little details. Like I said, it looks like kind of the boiler room, but it has water also. It has snakes all over the place. That's how she was able to stab Freddy in the eye with one. He's going after Dylan hardcore, and Dylan is terrified. Again, his performance, unreal. And then we get this amazing practical effect when he says, "I'm going to eat you up," to Dylan, and his mouth starts stretching very open, wider and wider and wider, until it looks like the thing out of Beetlejuice, when it's just the tongue, and he starts eating, trying to eat his head. That is such a great effect. I love that. And then we get another one, too, with the tongue, which you've seen before, but the tongue that comes all the way out and wraps around, almost said Nancy, Heather's face. Great stuff too there. The practical effects in this are very, very good. Which, great practical effects. It's another thing missing from a certain movie. I love how Dylan is facing his fears here and battling back against Freddy, just like his mother is. Just like Heather has to. Great stuff when he starts stabbing the tongue, and then you see that shot of Freddy with the normal size tongue, but it's like a forked tongue, split in half. That looks awesome. And then they just lock him in something, and where the fire is, and he burns to death. Like I said, every one of these movies for me just doesn't know how to get rid of Freddy. You could kill anything with fire. Think about it. I'm sure there's some type of organisms or some shit like that can survive. But you look around at almost any bad guy, supernatural or not, in any horror film and stuff, fire kills anything. They could have thought of something better than just burning him, which I know plays back to him being burned with what he did in the past before he died, but still, not a good way of killing Freddy off. Again, for every film in the series. Cute, but stupid at the same time ending. They defeated Freddy in that dumb way, like every film, like I said, and then they're back in reality. Freddy's dead. So, they're not in a dream, they're in reality. And Wes's script is just chilling on the floor in Dylan's room. That says, "Thank you, Heather, for playing Nancy one last time. Now, at least Freddy's back where he belongs." Where did that script come from? How did it get there? Wes Craven himself came over to Heather's house and left the script there and didn't think it was weird that they're missing or anything. That's so stupid. If there's an explanation, which I'm sure there isn't, unless you want to really try to argue it, let me know. But then it's cute how that's what they pick up and they start reading that, as a bedtime story, I guess, which who the hell could sleep after this? So, guys, that is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It took 4 hours to watch a 2-hour film. I'm being dead serious. 4 hours. This has been a real fun rewatch. I mean, what a great movie this is. And for this not being my series, pretty much just the first 3 films is all I could stomach. And they're fantastic. 3 not so much, still good. The first 2 are just masterpieces. This is just no slouch at all. It's an excellent film. The writing, the script, the acting, the dialogue, the performances, everything is executed just masterfully in this film. which leads me to always wonder what the fuck happened 2 years later. But alright guys, this has been so much fun rewatching this, and finally we're done with the Nightmare on Elm Street series. took almost a year, but we're done, because I already did the remake, because I wanted to get that one out of the way, how abysmal it is, and then my plan was do this right afterwards, and then you know how it is. It just took another 8 months. Everybody, thanks so much for watching as always. Thanks again, Jay and Carrie, for the push getting me over 650, and thank you guys, everybody who watches and hangs out and supports the channel in every way. You guys mean everything to me, and wherever you're from, hope you're having a great afternoon, morning, night, whatever, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.